All right, there's a few news articles. Dave Kennedy just got an M1 and was tweeting about it, and he said something that surprised me. He said he's setting up his Windows virtual machines on the M1 Mac. Now, I got an M1, and I could not figure out any way to make Windows machines on it, but apparently you can do it with Parallels. And so there's a blog here explaining how it works. They simulate the TPM, and they say you can run Windows 11, which thinks it's on Intel, in Parallels that's running on M1. So somehow it emulates the Intel processor, I guess. So I may try that. Last night in the cryptography class, we were talking about the New York coin. This group called City Coins makes coins for various cities. Miami, New York City, and Austin. San Francisco doesn't have one yet. I don't really know how it works. It's some kind of cryptocurrency. I don't really know what the point is, but I was thinking about NFTs and coins, and they're just a way to monetize fame. A band or anybody that's famous can get a coin that might go up and make some money, so I would think San Francisco would be a good contender for that. And they claim that Miami is getting money from the Miami coin. Now, this kind of reminds me of something 20 years ago. They passed a state lottery bill saying they were going to run a lottery and the money made by the lottery would go to the schools, but then they just stole the money from the lottery and none of the money really went to the schools. So I wonder if you actually get any money for the city from this, but they claim it's enough money to be 20% of Miami's entire annual budget. So there may be some money in having a San Francisco City coin. I don't know. This is pretty awesome. See this guy dressed up like Mark Zuckerberg, looks pretty much like him anyway, touting the joys of Iceland and explaining that it's the Iceland metaverse. And it has actual reality. Then at some point he jumps in a pool and there we are, totally giving Mark Zuckerberg, totally picking on him. Anyway, it's pretty fun. Mark Zuckerberg's video about his metaverse did all those things. All right, so Chrome has been talking about blocking view source because they think students will view source and cheat on tests. And this is kind of unbelievable. I mean, you could just view your stuff through a proxy like Burp and see it. You could just use a different browser. The source is on your hard drive somewhere. I don't know how. Anyway, and apparently they did it. They implemented it. They got a patch that blocks view source. So everybody is screaming about how stupid this whole thing is. We'll see what comes of that. Windows 11 is doing what Microsoft did in Windows 98. It's blocking other browsers. Instead of using HTTP or HTTPS for links, it's using Microsoft Edge : as the schema for links, and then they will only open in Edge. And the guy that wrote this article made a utility that would undo that, and Microsoft defeated it. And they say there's no longer anywhere in Control Panel you can set your default browser to Firefox or anything. Last time Microsoft did this, there was an antitrust lawsuit that nearly broke the company in half. So this is a risky move. And I highly doubt that Microsoft really gets that much money from people using the Edge browser. But anyway, they have decided to do this nasty stuff. They've done a lot of this stuff. Like you may remember when they had Windows 7 going up to Windows 10, they actually popped up a box that said, do you want Windows 10, yes or no? And whether you click yes or no, it downloads and puts on Windows 10. They frequently do things like this. Usually when it becomes notorious and the press hits them, then they reverse it. So this is pretty amazing. You don't need a rocket or anything. You just whip it around really fast and then let go and just throw a satellite up into orbit. And this thing is in vacuum, and there's a motor whipping it around, and this whole tube is in vacuum, and there's a thin membrane at the top, and it punches through the membrane, breaking the vacuum. And they managed to shoot something up into the stratosphere with this, at 20% power, so they're planning to launch satellites into orbit this way with no rockets or no nothing. And that might be a really great way to do it. They claim it will, use less power, be cheaper, create less pollution. All of that stuff is probably true. So Apple has been doing something sleazy like Microsoft. They have put a special chip on the glass faceplate on your iPhone 13 so that if you replace the glass faceplate, it detects that it's been replaced and now you can't use Face ID anymore. And the only way to avoid this is to go to Apple to repair things instead of third-party repair shops, or the third-party repair shop has to get a microscope and a special soldering iron to pick off the chip off the broken faceplate and move it to the new one. And again, after they were humiliated publicly and everybody's screaming and yelling about this, they backed off. And they say they're going to turn that off. So that would be nice. It's amazing how these companies that are the richest companies on earth do so many sleazy things just to make a small amount of additional money. It's like greed is a madness. Anyway, check my time. All right. So the ransomware payment is more than $6 million, more than I expected. Although not in other countries, but in America, people pay an average of $6 million. In Canada, $5 million. In the UK, less than $1 million. The average ransomware victim. And they say 40% of companies say they don't have any backups, but they didn't pay the ransom and they were able to recover anyway. So I'm not quite sure what they did to do that. You remember the official government recommendation? Biden first said everybody can just get a booster. Then the CDC came out and said, oh no, only the old people should get the booster. And then Rochelle Walensky said, well, old people or other people who feel like they're at risk because of the way they live or their job or something. And so first one county, Santa Clara County, and now the entire state has now just chosen to interpret that vague recommendation the way I did, saying everybody can get a booster. Which just back to what Biden said in the first place, which I think is definitely the position supported by the evidence. The evidence from Israel and now from America and many other countries is very clear that the vaccines do wear off in effectiveness after about 6 months, and you really need a booster. So I went and got a booster. I said, I'll just tell whatever lie I have to tell to get the damn booster. And the whole state has figured this out, that that's the right answer. Whatever the CDC was smoking, I don't care. They're just wrong. And on issues of life and death, I highly recommend not trusting the government any more than you have to. It's not a lie, it's an exploit. Well, yeah, that's one way to look at it, yeah. But I was actually talking to someone out there, and I said, I think I should get a booster, but they say I'm not eligible. And while I was talking to him, I said, why am I letting that stop me? I'm after working at the college for a long time, I've definitely learned that you frequently have to defy the authorities to get the job done. And so I should take the same attitude towards this, and that's what I did. And now they've admitted, at least in California, that everybody should just get the blow-in booster. And I think pretty soon, so we're all going to end up right where Joe Biden said we were. Everybody should just get the booster. The CDC is too conservative. The fact is, COVID is really dangerous. Even if there's some risk of the shot, it's much less risk than COVID. All right. I did get a cold, though, somehow. They say there's a cold going around. I have no idea how I could get a cold under these conditions. We're all pretty much still locked down. But anyway, I got a cold. So this one, a lot of people are screaming and yelling about on Twitter. Randori is a pen test company. And they discovered a Palo Alto zero-day to hack into the firewall. And then they used it for a year without telling Palo Alto. And then they finally told Palo Alto. So they were attacking customers in pen tests with a zero-day that nobody knew about. And people are saying they should have told them right away to fix it. They shouldn't have used that dangerous sort of attack in a pen test, because how's a company supposed to defend themselves? And yet a lot of people come up with what I think is correct, which is the bad guys attacking you probably have 0 days too. That's probably a fair pen test. You're supposed to have defense in depth. You're supposed to assume, what if they have a 0 day and they can get in some device on your network? You better have more layers of defense behind that to cope with that. So anyway, it's various people are screaming and yelling about it, but opinion seems about evenly split as to whether you should be doing this or whether you should not be using 0 days in pen tests. So this I thought was interesting. I heard about this a while ago. For a long time, people said you should use a VPN, but this guy says it's probably not worth it anymore. And what he says, which I think is quite fair, is if you pay for a commercial VPN, you go to a commercial VPN provider, and those people are sleazy as hell. In fact, most of them just got bought up by malware companies. So you're handing your data right to the worst people on earth. And if you want a VPN, it'd be a whole lot better to just get a cloud server like DigitalOcean or Amazon and set up your own VPN, which is not that hard. And then the data is not going anywhere out of your control, really. Wonder what the remediation recommendations were for the pen testers. Well, yeah, that would be an interesting issue. But I think that, in my opinion, that would be a perfectly fine pen test. That they say, we got in with a 0 day, so there's nothing you can do to stop them from getting in the firewall. Now you have to somehow cope. What if your firewall is compromised? You have to have some way to protect your high-value stuff and detect that and respond to it. That seems like a fair test. Relatively advanced test, but still not terrible. Other people say not. Anyway, they talk about this company that used to make malware, bought all the VPNs, and so yeah, defense in depth is definitely real. I mean, that's the point of this course. Incident response in depth, defense in depth. I mean, the fact is, some of the devices on your network are going to get compromised, either through 0 days or for somebody putting on an unapproved application or writing down their password and getting stolen. You know, realistically, some of your devices are going to get compromised, and you should have a way to respond to that. All right, 10 minutes after, I'll stop this. Whoops.